Okay, so in our last class, we have seen JSON, right? So JSON, JavaScript object notation. So how we can identify the nodes in the JSON by writing JSON path, and how we can locate the data in the JSON file, right? So the JSON is mainly the part of the response. So when you start validating the response, and we need to understand the basic stuff about the JSON, and then we are able to write the JSON path, and we are able to generate the JSON path, and accordingly we can validate the data. So today we are going to see some other options which we can consider for validating the data. All right. So once you start validating the response, we need to consider a few important things. And one is status code. The next one is headers, and then cookies, response time, and then response body. So these are the main components which we are going to validate once you send a request and once you get a response from the request. Okay. And before sending request and response, we have to know what type of response we will get. So if you don't know the type of response, or if you don't know the components on response, you cannot add validation points. Okay, you don't know what exactly you have to validate in the response. So before sending a request, right, before testing the APIs, we should have a clarity on what kind of request we are sending, and what kind of data we are sending as part of the request, and what kind of data we are getting the response, what kind of options or what kind of status, headers, cookies we are getting once get the response. So these are the things which we have to know before sending the request and getting the response, and that is a prerequisite. So if you don't know the response, like if you don't know what are the things will be there in the response, you cannot add proper validation points. Okay, so before adding the validation point, at least once you have to run the API, at least once you have to send the request, and accordingly you can analyze the data, and as per your expectation, whether response code is correct or not, headers are correct or not, cookies are correct or not, and you can put some validation points for that particular request. Okay, so when you put some validation points, we need to consider mainly these 5 important things. The status code we have to validate whenever you send some request and get the response. Then we need to check some headers, and there are multiple headers are there, and we can check 1 or 2 headers, or we can check all headers, and then cookies also, and then response time and response body. Okay, and these are the main things which we need to test. So to test these items, we need to add something called assertions. Okay, so there is something called assertion. Assertion is nothing but what? Which is a validation point. Assertion is called as a validation. So to add these assertions in Postman, there is one library provided by Postman that is called PM. What is a PM? PM is a kind of a library, and in which there are so many functions are available. Okay, so many functions are available. So by using these functions, we can add validation points. So instead of calling the functions, so we can call them as a functions, or we can say assertions also. So in the Postman library, so we have certain number of functions are available. So by adding those functions, we can validate these things: status code, headers, cookies, and so on. And these functions are written by using JavaScript. Okay, so Postman internally use JavaScript. So you don't need to learn JavaScript for that, but you need to learn some basic functions are available, assertion functions. And if you know those functions, you can easily put validation points. Okay, so PM is a Postman library, built-in library, which is available in Postman itself, and which is providing certain number of functions to add validation points. And those functions are developed by using JavaScript only. So what we need to do now to put assertion, we have to just call the functions from the PM library by passing certain number of parameters. When I say a function, which will take some parameter, so we need to pass some parameters inside the functions so that it will perform the validations. Okay, so how the functions we need to write, and even though we are calling the functions, we need to write something called JavaScript function. Okay, so we have to call all these functions from the PM library by writing another JavaScript function. So we need to write our own JavaScript function. Inside this function, we need to call PM dot some function. So whatever function is available in the PM library, so we will invoke those functions through our JavaScript functions. We have to create one user defined function in which we have to call Postman function. Okay, so I will show you the syntaxes, how we can write all these things, and then we will try to understand. So here we have to create our own functions in two different ways. So one is a normal function, the other one is arrow function. One is called normal function, the other one is called arrow function. So which is not exactly the same as a Java syntax. It is something different because which is following the JavaScript. So the function, user defined function, we can write in two different ways. One is a normal function, the other one is arrow function. Now I'll show you the syntax, how to create, and accordingly we can put all the validation points. So let me share a small presentation. So these are the items which we are going to test: status code, headers, cookies, and so on. Now if I just look at here, so we have to use something called Chai Assertion library. So this is a kind of a JavaScript framework. So normally when you're working with a Java, we use JUnit, TestNG frameworks, right? So why we'll use them? Because we want to organize your test cases. We need to maintain the tests, all these things. So they will provide some certain number of features. Similarly, when you're working with the JavaScript, there are some frameworks are available. So like Mocha framework, Chai framework, like that. So especially Postman will use Chai framework. Chai is a name of the framework and which contains certain number of functions. Okay, so for example, in the Chai Assertion library, we have to create a function like this. PM is what? PM is a Postman dot test. What is the test here? As I said, Postman library contains some functions, predefined functions. So test is what? A test is a function. Now here we need to provide the test name in the double quotations, comma, and function is a keyword. Function is a keyword, so include the bracket. And this function implementation start from the curly brace. So this is a starting point and this is an ending point. And inside this, we need to implement the function body by writing an assertion. And this particular test function is closed here. Okay, this one closed here. So this is the one way of writing the user defined function in JavaScript. Okay, the same way we have to write in Postman also. So this is the one type of syntax. The other way is by writing arrow function. So arrow function is nothing but what we can say pm.test and here test name. And here instead of writing function and bracket keyword, we just say simply one bracket. We don't specify the function keyword. And after that, we say one arrow. So this is basically equal to and greater than the combination we need to write. So this is called arrow. And then starting point and this is the ending point. And here we need to write the assertion. And this test function is got closed here. Here it is got closed. So this is a normal function and this is the arrow function. We can call it as an arrow function. So in JavaScript, we can write functions in two different ways. We can write user-defined functions in two different ways. One is a normal function by using function keyword. The other one is by using arrow, which is called as arrow function. And we no need to write the function keyword here. Instead of that, we need to just write one arrow mark here. Okay, so either we can use the first one or second one, but second one is the most popular one. Many times we use arrow functions. So by writing this arrow function, we can write validation points for every component. Suppose if you want to test status code or header or cookies, response code, whatever it is, we need to write that assertion inside the function. Inside the function, we have to write the assertion. So here we need to include that validation point. Okay, so this is a syntax. Now we'll see one by one how we can write this function to validate different components of response. Now the first, let us start with the status code, testing status codes. To test the status code, what we need to do is we need to write an assertion like this. But where we have to write all these things? The Postman tool, if we just go to the request, any request, and here you can see when I open the request, you can see some tabs here: parameters, authorization, headers, body, pre-request, skip, test, and settings. There are multiple options are there, right? So here we need to go to test tab. So inside the test tab, when you go here, you will see the window here. So here we have to write all the validation functions. So this is the area where exactly we have to put all the validation points. So now later we will add multiple validation points. First of all, we will see how we can add validation points. So now let us start with testing the status code. So how we can validate the status code? So the same function we have to write. The syntax will not be changed, but internally the assertion will be changed. Okay, this is called assertion. And these brackets you can put in the same line or multiple lines. And the same syntax. So this is syntax I have used. Okay, let me just copy this. Okay, so this is a syntax. Okay, so this is a syntax which we have used. And the same syntax you can write like this. So this is a syntax which you used. Okay, now this function is started here, and here we'll put an assertion, and the function is closed, and this is the closing of test. This test is got closed here. This function is got closed here. So same thing we can write in the single line. So how we can write in the single line? So for example, if you just look at the syntax. Okay, so let's look at the syntax. Same thing. So pm.test status code. This is actually test name, and bracket and arrow mark, and this curly brace you can keep in the same line. And this is the assertion. After completion of this assertion, this curly brace is here, and this closing bracket and semicolon is here. So the same thing here I have split into multiple lines so that you can understand the syntax, but we can also combine everything into single line. So here we can start this bracket, you can start here, and this bracket you can close here. Okay, same syntax. So now let us try to understand what exactly it is. So pm.test is a function from the pm library, and here we need to put the test, what kind of test it is. So he can write some description about the test. Like I want to check the status code is 200. So I can just write some message here, status code is 200, and arrow function. And inside this, we have to write this statement. In the PM library, we have a method called response.to.have.status. So a few keywords you have to remember. It is in simple English language also. So pm.response. So what we need to test here, 200. 200 is a part of the response. So pm.response dot to dot have status. And here, what is the status we are expecting, that we need to specify. Okay, if you are expecting 200 is a status, so we have to say 200. If you're expecting 201 is a status, then you have to specify 201. And this description is a user defined. You can write anything here in the double quotation. That is just a name of the test or description of the test you can write. But this is the actual important thing where we need to specify the expected value. So now this will check the status is 200 or not once you send a request, once you get a response. And if the status is 200, you got the response, then this particular function or this particular assertion will pass, or else it will fail. So this is a validation point which we need to add if you want to test the status code. And there is one more approach is also there. So for example, suppose I will specify multiple status code. Let us say when I send my request, I'll get some response. Sometimes the response may have 200 or 201 or 202. Like if you want to test them. So for that, what you can do, you can use one more operator called one off. That means what? Suppose you are getting the response as a 201 status code, and this assertion will pass. Why? Because 201 is listed here. And suppose you are getting the response as 202. Okay, you are getting the response as 202. And that also, then also this will pass because you specified the 202. So what are all possibilities are there to get the status codes? All possibilities we can specify in this list. So what is the method here? pm.expect. Again, so pm.response.code, and this is the parameter we have to pass in the expect, dot to be dot one of 201 202. So you no need to remember all these things, guys. So the Postman is provided a documentation, and in their documentation we can find all the syntaxes and all the methods. They have given clear documentation. Just we need to follow the documentation. So we no need to remember all the options. Okay. So this is a way. So pm.test, this is a description, okay, arrow function, and this is the actual assertion. And in this assertion will pass if the status code is 201 or 202, anything. But normally status code will be only one. But if you don't know exact status code, but if you know some status codes, and if you want to validate if the status code is part of that list or not, then you can specify multiple things, or else go with the first one only. Okay, so these assertions are the same for all kinds of API request. According to your response, we need to put different type of assertions, but the same assertion, same syntax we will follow across all the HTTP request. So this is another flavor of same thing. Here also we are testing the status code, but what is the difference between this one and this one? Here we are exactly testing the status code with one value, one expected value, but here we are expecting two different values, either this one or this one of the thing will be matched, and then this assertion will pass. Okay, so this is a one thing. And in the status code, you can see something called some message. Whenever you are done some post request, especially when you do the post request, you can see something called created. Along with the status code, you can also see something called created. And if you want to validate this message, we can also use the same thing like pm.response.to.have and status. Okay, so pm.response.to.have status, and here we can specify that message. And this is also part of your response. This is also part of your response. Okay, so this is a one more function which we have to test the status code. Okay, to test the status code especially. So now let us try to insert these functions in the response and check whether they are properly working or not. Okay, so this is all about verifying the status code. Now let's go to Postman and let me take this get request. So currently in the test tab, I don't have anything, right? So here we don't have anything. So we need to add that. Let me take the student API test cases, because here we will validate the proper response. So let me start my student API. So let's go to JSON section, CMD. And whenever you start running your API, we need to run this command, JSON-server, and then students.json. Okay, now my API started running. Now I can just minimize it. Right, so now let us go and add some validation points for get a single student. So get single student, and here already added something. Let me just remove this. Okay, so now let me just run the request once. Okay, get a single student. When I send this request, so you got some response here. Okay, you got some response, and here it is a status code 200. Okay, is my status code. So now we need to validate the status code, so whether 200 or not. So what we can do, we need to go to the test tab here. So basically you are there in the parameters, authorization, and so many other tabs are there, and you need to go to the test tab. So here we need to write that validation point. So I want to check the status code is 200 or not. So for that, what we can do now, we need to add the assertion validation point. So pm.test, and I'm checking status code is 200. This is my test description or test name, arrow function. And pm.response.to.have.status is 200. We are expecting status is 200. This is the function. And similarly, I can also add something. Let's say, suppose I want to check multiple status codes. Okay, just like this. So I am expecting this one or this one, either one of them. So in that calls also, we can just add this function. And we can add multiple things, guys. Okay, not only one, we can add multiple assertions for one request. Go back, and I'm also adding this. So this is a get request, right? So I'll say get request, and here we are expecting, let's keep 200 in the list and 201 also, but we will get only 200. So 200 will match, 201 will not match. Okay, so if you have multiple options, multiple status code, you can just specify in the list, and if one of them should be matched, and then it will execute and pass. And this is also the right way of adding. And suppose if you are sending any post request, then you can see here created, right? So that also we can do it. Okay, so let me just add these two. Now let me just run this and see how it is going to work. Now I'm just saving it. As soon as you added these assertions, just save the assertion, save it, and then let me run the one more time. This is same assertion, same request. I'm going to run one more time. Click on the send. Okay, now observe this. So we got the body response as usual, and we got some cookies and headers, but still we are not validating them. Now go to the test results. If we go to the test results, currently you can see these are the two got passed. Status code is 200, successful get request. Both are got passed because we are expecting the same thing. Suppose let us change it. So I'm expecting 201, for example. Now, will it pass or fail? Definitely it will fail because actual status code is 200, but we are expecting 201 here. Now again, save and execute. So now you can see my test is got failed. So we are expecting 201, but it is returning 200. So my test is got failed. My validation point is got failed on status code. So this is how we can just add assertions in this particular test tab, and then we can validate. Okay, and this is for multiple requests, and this is for single request. Now save it and execute one more time. So now we got first one is got passed. So this is for status code, how we can verify the status code. This is for post request, especially when you send something, so which will say created along with the 201, it will also show you some message called created. If you want to verify, you can just add this validation point. So these are the three different type of functions which we can use to validate status codes. Okay, so status codes we can validate by adding these three functions. So the next one is headers part. So how we can verify the headers. So if I just go to the Postman, so as soon as you send your request, we got some headers also in the response, you can see here. So in the headers contains a lot of information, and this is basically talking about so many things, talking about data, network information, server information, so many things are there, but we can't understand everything. But our responsibility is we need to check every header is having proper value or not. So mainly what we will check in the header part is called the content type. This is the most important thing which we need to test. Content type or content length also we can check, but content length is dynamic. Every time we will not get the same value. So we don't need to test that, but mainly content type we have to verify. So what is the content type is representing what kind of response format. Sometimes the response will be in the JSON format. Sometimes it will be XML. Sometimes it will be HTML. Different formats of response we will get. So the content type is JSON or not. The response is in the JSON format or not. That we can verify. So the content type is written in this one. So this value we can validate. This is the value we can validate. And a connection type also we can validate. And when it is expired, whatever the things, whatever the headers we got it here, everything we can validate. But there are some options which are dynamically changing, which we cannot predict those values. So we cannot add any validation points, especially let's say cache control. Okay, and then date, right? So this will keep on changing. And keep alive, this is also keep on changing. So there are certain things, even content also keeps changing. So these things we cannot validate, but whatever the values which are static here, so those things we can validate. So we can say content type is there. So content type is most important thing which we need to validate. Okay, so this is a content type which we can validate. If the content is in XML format, then you will see application/XML. Okay, and if our content is in HTML format, then you can see application/HTML, something that is. So this is basically called MIME type. Okay, which is basically called as a MIME type. MIME, MIME type. So the MIME type is representing the type of response or type of data, whether it is a JSON or XML or HTML or text, whatever it is. So the content type should be application/JSON, that we can validate. So now let's go and see how we can put this validation on headers. So check that response header is present or not. So there are two validations we can do it. First thing is what? When I send a request, when you get the response, first of all, this header is present or not. We got this content type header or not. That's the first thing. Okay, if you got this header, the value of the header is correct or not. So two things we can verify. One is called the presence of header. The second is what? The value of header. Okay, so the presence of header we can verify with one function. The other function is what? We can check the value of the particular header we can verify. So for that we have two functions. So the first function is what? Content type header is present or not. Not only content type, you can check any other header is present or not. So the only thing is you need to change the value here. You need to put the header name here. So whatever we got the response in the header, so like pragma, expires, content type, content length, e tag, date. So these are all different names of headers. So we can put anything in this particular function. So basically what this will check this particular header is created for that response or not. That's the main intention of putting this pointer. The second thing is what? Okay, so this header is present, but what is the value of this header? That we need to verify. So for that, we need to write this function. So content type header is application or JSON, we need to verify. So this is arrow function, and the pm.expect and pm.response.headers.get, and here we have to specify content hyphen type. This is the parameter. This is the header we want to check, content type, and that should be equal to what? Application slash JSON colon char set equal to UTF, and this is all completely the value of content type. So the complete value we have to specify. So here we have to specify the what type of header we are verifying, and here we have to specify the what is the value which should have, what is the value that header should have. So that is the expected value we have to specify here. So here expected header, and here we have to specify the expected value for that particular header. And this you can use for multiple headers also. So if you want to verify other type of headers, you need to write the same function multiple times. Suppose I want to check some other type of header. So let's say I want to check content length. So then what you need to do here, we need to specify the content length. And here you have to specify the value you are expecting for the content length, right? So that will verify the header part. So these are the two functions are there to verify the headers, content type and content type value. Okay, now let's put these two assertions in the Postman console, and then we'll see. So we already added status code. Now I'm going to add two more functions to verify the header presence and the value of the header, two things. Let me put here. Okay. Yeah, so this is for header presence, and this is for value of the header. Now save it. As soon as you add something here, you have to save it and then send the request one more time. Click on send. Okay, so now we can just look at here, test results. There are three validation points we kept here. So if we just go to test results, and you can see status code, content type, and content type header is correct or not. Okay, so this is how we can validate the headers, the header presence and header value. So you can change here what kind of header. Suppose here content length is there, so I put content length. Suppose if you want to validate something else, suppose I want to validate content length, so you can say content length and the value of the content length is 126. That you can specify here in the single quotations, and that will validate the another header and another header value. Okay, so these are the two functions which are available for testing the header information. Now let's move on to the next one, cookies, and how to test the cookies. And sometimes the cookies values keep on changing, and they are more dynamic, because whenever you send request, you may not expect the same values for the cookies. But there are some cookies, their values are same. Sometimes they will get the same value for the cookie, and those type of cookies we can validate. So to validate the cookies, if I just go to the Postman here, once you send your request, you can see one more tab under this, under response called cookies. So currently for this particular request, there are two cookies are created. Okay, there are two cookies are created. So each cookie is having some name, some value, domain, path, expires, HTTP, and secure. Some details will be there for that particular cookie. So what we need to verify here is, we need to verify the cookie and their value. So we need to verify the cookie and their value. Suppose the cookie name is what? Currency. And what is that value of this is USD. That you can verify. And what is the cookie name here is language. The value of this language cookie is what? EN-GB. So this I can verify. So if you want to verify them, what you can do is we can just put the function like this. So pm.test. And currently this cookie is having some language, right? This is the cookie and this is the value. Now I'm going to validate this. So for that, what you can use, we can just write some description here. I'm just checking whether cookie language is present or not. So I'm just writing some description here, arrow function. And the assertion is what? pm.expect, pm.cookies.has language. So what this function will do now, it will check in the cookies, the language cookie is present or not. There are so many cookies, but the language cookie is present or not. So that it will verify. It should be true. So the pm.cookies has language to be true. It should be true. And if it is present, then this validation will pass. If it is not present, then validation will fail. So this is just checking for cookie present or not. But if you want to validate the cookie, then we have to specify the another function, pm.expect, pm.cookies.get. And first we need to get this cookie, and the value should be compared with this. So dot equal en-gb. So this is the assertion pointer. pm.expect, pm.cookies.get, and this is a cookie name and this is a value. So by using this syntax, you can validate any other cookies. Just we need to pass the cookie name here and cookie value here. And if you want to validate multiple cookies, you have to write multiple functions. For every cookie, you have to write a different function. Okay, so this is how we need to verify the cookie. So these are the two different methods are there. One is what? Presence of cookie. The second one is what? The value of the cookie. Same thing we have done for header also. First we have verified header presence and then header value. Similarly, we can verify cookie presence and cookie value. Now let us add these 2 points also to our request. Now go to the test tab, and now I'm adding the validations for cookies, cookie present and cookie value. Let me add it here. Yeah, so this is for language cookies present or not, and the second is for language cookies having some value or not, en-gb or not, we can verify. So now save it and then send the request. Okay, so now we can go to the results. Totally 5 validation points we kept. So the last 2 are related to cookies, they have got passed. Okay, so for example, I'm expecting something else. Let's say en_gb and just put some only en, for example. And now save and execute. So this should fail because we are expecting is different, but actually is different. So this validation point works like that. So we can verify the presence of cookie, and then we can verify the value of the cookie. And if you want to validate multiple cookies, you have to keep multiple function points. Okay. So the next one is what? Testing response time. Okay, so testing the response time. So how we can verify the testing response time? So you can just look at this request. So this is the response time. You can see 44 milliseconds are there. Okay, so 44 milliseconds are there. But this time we cannot predict exact time. Okay, it depends on the network speed, depends on complexity of data. This time keep on changing. So we cannot exactly specify the same time. So if suppose here this time it is returning the response within 44 milliseconds. But next time when you run this, it may take 50 seconds or sometimes it will take 60 seconds. So that value is not constant. But what we can verify here is we can put some time, and if the response is getting below the time, we can make our test passed. Okay, we can put some maximum time out. And if your response is getting, let's say currently it is returning 44 milliseconds. So I can put something validation point approximately. So if my got response within 50 seconds, then I can make my test pass. If the response is getting more than 50 milliseconds, then I can make my test is passed. So like this, you can put some approximate time, but you cannot specify exact time because this will keep changing. Okay. So how we can add the status time is like this. Suppose response time is less than 200 milliseconds. For example, I put maximum point is 200 milliseconds. Then how we can specify pm.expect, pm.response time dot to be below 200. Okay, below 200. So if the response time is below 200, then this will pass. And if it is taking more than 200 milliseconds, then it will fail. Or this is the time, guys. Don't think this is a status code. Okay, this is a time. That is up to you how much time you will put. Okay, so let me just add this also, response time. So currently we are getting 44 milliseconds approximately. Let me run one more time and see. Yeah, now this time it's getting 42 milliseconds, right? So let me just add this point, assertion point here. So 42, 44 it is taken. For now, I'm just adding 50 here. Let us say 50. Description also I'm just changing. Let's say 50 milliseconds. Now save and then execute. Yeah, so now we got response in 37 milliseconds. So it is got passed. Let me run one more time. So this time we got a 51. See here, this time we got 51, but what we specified only 50. So it is got failed here. So expected is 51 is 50 is maximum time is specified, but it is giving 51 milliseconds. So it got failed. So approximately we can specify max 100 is fine. 100 milliseconds means 1 second. So you can just say max 100 or 200, whatever you can just keep it here. So this is how we can verify the response time. Okay, response time. So here range is not possible. So we can just specify below, or I think we have one more function is also there. We have something called above is also there. Okay, either you can use below or above. So these functions you can use below or above you can use. Okay, so this is one more function which we can use for testing response time. So what are the things so far we covered? So we have seen how to verify the status code, and then headers, cookies, and then response. Now, what is the next thing is response body. This is a very, very crucial thing and very important also. So for rest of the items, we can directly keep the functions. Directly, we can copy paste this function. So almost every API request, you have the same stuff. Okay, so you can just copy paste this. But the response we have to test. So response will be different. Response body will be the different from one API request to another API request. So now we need to validate the response body. That is the next item. All right. So now we'll see how we can validate the response body. So this is most important item which we need to focus on. Okay. So we will get the response based on the request. So what kind of request we are sending, accordingly we will get the proper response, right? So this keeps changing. The response is completely depends on what kind of request we have sent, right? So now to validate the response body, so we have different type of options available. So we have a different type of options are available, and especially JSON path will play a very important role while performing the while testing the response. JSON path, yesterday we have discussed, right? If you want to locate a specific value or specific node in the JSON response, we have to use the JSON path. So that will play very important role while verifying the response body. Now let us see how we can validate the response body in the response. So now let's go to the section. Yeah. So the first thing, the first verifying, asserting a value type. Asserting a value type. This is a first validation on the response. So what is that mean? Value type is nothing but what? For example, here, this is my response, JSON response. Okay. In this response, I have a multiple fields here. There's ID is one field, name is another field, location is another field, phone, courses. These are the fields, and every field is having corresponding value here. So every field is having corresponding value. Now what we need to verify here, the first validation is what? The type of the value. For example, ID is what? Integer type. Name is what? A string type. Okay, and what is the type of the courses? Array type. So if you want to validate the type of the field or type of data, then we can add assertion like this. So whether the ID is number or not, whether the name is a string or not, are we getting the string value or not here? And are you getting the array or not here? So that we can verify first. So to verify that, we have to write like this. Multiple assertions we can write for multiple field level validations. So we can write like this. So first of all, we have to write this statement which will capture the response. So whatever the response we got in the body, we have to capture the entire response into some variable. So here JSON data is a variable, and the type of the variable is constant, or you can say var, let. There are multiple keywords in JavaScript. You can use one of the keyword. And this is the kind of declaration. In Java, we'll specify integer, float, double, string, right? Similarly, in the JavaScript, we have a different types. You can say constant, or you can say var, you can say let. Multiple keywords are there. You can use one of them. And this is just for variable declaration. JSON data is just a variable. So now what this statement will do is pm.response.json. So what this will do is, from the PM library, whatever response we got, that response will be copied into this variable. the JSON response, whatever you got the response, the entire response body will be copied into this JSON data variable. That's the first step we have to do it. For body verification, first step we have to do this. After that, we can put any number of validation points. The first and most important thing is we have to capture the entire response into the variable. And then we have to write an actual function. So pm.test. And if you want, you can write this statement inside the function also. As a first statement inside the function, as a first statement, you can write this statement, no problem. But this will be used in multiple functions later. So later we will create multiple functions like this. In every functions, we need JSON data. So that's the reason I have defined this outside of the function. When I create this variable outside of the function, that is called as a global variable, so that I can access that variable in all other functions. So that's the reason I have defined this variable outside of the function. When you define this inside of the function, we cannot access this in another functions. That's the reason I created this outside of the function. Okay. Now, what is the validation you want to do is we have to verify the type of data. So whether ID is number or not, whether name is string or not, location is string or not, phone is string or not, course is array or not, that we need to verify. So for that, we can put a validation point like this. pm.test, and this is a description about the test data type of the response and arrow function. And inside this, pm.expect, and whatever the JSON data we captured in this variable, we have to specify as a parameter pm.expect JSON data dot to be. We have to use to be function, to be an object, to be an object. What is this validation point? This entire JSON is an object. Okay, the entire JSON is one object, right? The entire JSON is one object. So whether it is written proper JSON object or not, that we can verify by using this point. pm.expect JSON data dot to be an object. The entire JSON is an object or not? Yes. If it is an object, then this point will pass. We are verifying the entire JSON as a one single object. That is the first validation point. Now the second validation point. Now let us take a name. So the name value is a string or not? We can verify. So how we can put that? pm.expect, and from the JSON object, we have to extract the name field. Right? How can access this name field? By writing JSON path. How we can write the JSON path? JSON data, whatever data we captured from that dot name field we are accessing, and that name field to be a string. And these are the JSON data types. Yesterday we have discussed string, number, array, object, null. So these are all JSON data types. So this name should be string type we are expecting. The next thing, ID. So pm.expect JSON data.id dot to be a number. This should be a number. We are expecting this should be a number. And courses. The courses is basically an array type which contains multiple values. So I can put validation like this: pm.expect JSON data.courses dot to be an array. So like this, for every field, whatever is there in your JSON response or JSON data, we can verify the data type of that particular field is correctly giving or not. And this is a validation of the type. So test the type of any part of the response, asserting the value type. So what is a value type is we got in the response that we are going to verify. Okay, so this is the one thing. So there are so many other things are there. So let me just finish that. Okay, don't ask the questions till I completed this. So just only first one I have completed response body. Still we have to do a lot of other validations on the response body. This is just the first validation we have to do here. Okay, so data type validation we have done in this. Every field are having some value. So that value is correctly coming as per the data type is not, that we have to verify. So let us copy this and check in the response. So this is the response I got. So in the response, we can verify name, location, phone, courses, everything. So let me put this validation point in the test tab, and another validation point I have added. So first we need to capture the JSON data into the variable, and then we added all these points. Okay, now save it and then send it. Okay, so now we got it. So this is the way we can
Go to the test results, and you got the output like this. So this is validated. So for example, ID is a number. Okay, and the name is a string, and JSON data is an object, courses is array. So let us say ID is a number by default here. Let me just expecting as a string. Then what happens, we will see. I'm expecting ID value is a string format. So now save and execute. So now the assertion is got failed. So why it is failed is because we are expecting a string. We are expecting a string, but actually is what, integer. So that is got failed. So according to our expectation, it is working or not. The type of data is correct or not, we can verify this. So this is the first validation point on response. Even though if you have a multiple records, no problem at all. You can write one of the field, because if you have a multiple records, how it will be, the fields will not be changed, right? The fields will not be changed. So for example, let us say this is your response. Okay, so you can just say this is your response. And the response, let us say you have one more record. Okay, let us say you have a one more record. Now I have a two records here. I have a two records here. Just a second. Okay, so in the first record, name is a string. Even second record also, obviously it should be string. It will not change. So you can verify any one field, either this one or this one. Anything is fine. You can verify any one field. No need to put validation for every name field. Just try to put one validation on one field. That can be from first record, or that can be for another record. It is still fine. Okay, it is still fine. Okay, so remember that. So accordingly you can put. So even though if you have a multiple records, no problem, because in every record ID value is 1. That is an integer. In every record, name is string. In every record, phone number. Every record, courses is array. That will not change anyway. Whatever data type which we got in the first record, same thing will be repeated for rest of the records also. You will not see any difference. Okay, so if you have a multiple records also, you don't have any problem. So you can happily specify the data type. Okay, sorry guys, so that is a number, not an integer. All right, so now save it, then execute. So now my assertion will pass. Okay, so this is the first validation on type of data. So whether we are getting the right type or not, object or not, string or not, number or not, array or not, we can verify. And if you have multiple fields, we have to put multiple points in one single function. No need to write multiple functions for multiple fields here. You can put all fields in one single function. Okay, now the next one. So the next thing is asserting array properties. Asserting array properties. So what exactly it is? Asserting array properties is nothing but, so for example, let us say I have an array variable in the body. So this array contains some value here. Okay, now I want to verify this array contains these values or not. Okay, this array contains these values, exactly the same values or not, I want to verify. Okay, so for that, what you can verify, the test array properties, and this validation is only for array type of data. If you have an array inside the JSON, so we can verify the array elements or array values. So how we can verify? The first point, pm.expect JSON data.courses. What is this courses? Courses is a array. Courses is an array. And if you want to validate the single value in array, which is present or not, simply you can say to.include. Okay, if you want to just check Java is a part of the courses or not, or Selenium is a part of the courses or not. If you want to verify this, you can just put this function to.include, specify one item. And here it will allow us to put only one item when I use include method or include function. So pm.expect JSON data.courses. What is this JSON data? Again, the same variable which we created here. So this we have to create before the function, because I created this as a global variable. I can use this JSON data in every function. So I here have not created again. So same JSON data I'm using here. JSON data.courses dot include Java. So this will pass if it contains a Java. And similarly, you can specify another item here. If this item is part of this course arrays, then it will pass. If it is not here, then it will fail. There's a first validation point. Include or not, we can check. And suppose we want to check multiple options. suppose multiple values should be included or not, and these are the part of this array or not, then you can write another pointer, pm.expert JSON data.courses dot to have dot members, and here we can define the same array which contains the values. Okay, and these values no need to be in order. You can write in whichever order you want. The order is not important here, but the values, the content is important. So this array contains Java and Selenium. And here also we are validating whether the array contains Java or Selenium. Okay, so let us try to add this validation and then check it. Go to the Postman. And now just copying the same function. So here test array contents in body. So now save this and then execute. Okay, so now it got passed. The last one is got passed, array properties. So for example, here I'm expecting something. Okay, let's say C++. Actually, which is not part of your array. So definitely it will fail. Yeah, now it has got failed. So this is how we can verify the array values. In your response, if you have any array, if you want to verify the contents in array, then this is a way of validating this. Okay. So why 2 times used? This is for single value validation. This is the multiple values validation. That is option. If you want to remove this, you can just remove this, no problem, because this is already covered here, right? So if you want to validate single value, then you can go with this point or this assertion, or if you want to validate multiple values, then go with this one. That is up to you which one you have to use. Okay. So that's the reason I covered both the things. Depends on your requirement. You can choose one of them. Right. So if you have one value in array, you can just go with them. And if you want to test multiple values presence in the array, then you can go with the second. So both the points I have put in the same assertion. Okay. Now this is one more type of validation inside the body. So we have verified in arrays, data is correctly coming or not by putting these validation. Okay. So the next one is JSON fields, validating JSON fields in response. This is another important thing, guys. Okay, so this is another thing. So validating JSON fields in response. So this is my same response body. Now this time I want to verify the values of every field. Okay, so let's say name is John or not, location is India or not, courses are Java, Selenium or not, I want to verify. And here, even if you have a multiple records, you can still verify name, location, phone, right? Because if you have a multiple records, the name value will be different, location will be different, phone will be different, courses can be different, right? If you have a multiple records. So in those cases, what you can do is you have to specify the JSON path. So by properly writing the proper JSON path, you can verify it. Suppose currently I have only one record here. So I can directly say JSON data ID, JSON data name, location, phone, and so on. But if you have another record, then you have to write a proper JSON path here. And then that will locate the element and then check the value here. These are all JSON path, ID, dot, name, location, and so on, phone number. So let's see how we can write this validation. So value of location field is India. Not only location, I have verified other things also here. And just look at this. So the name value is John, location is India, some phone number and courses is there. So how we can verify this data is we can first capture the entire response into JSON data. So again, here I have defined this as a local variable. Okay, this is the local variable. We can just put this in outside of the function also. Just I have done some time back here. Okay, so here I have done right outside of the function I have defined, because the same JSON data variable I can use in multiple functions. So if you define within the function, you can use that for only within the function. But here I have created one more statement within the function I created, but this is not required. If you already define this variable for other thing, again, you no need to define this. Okay, so we got the JSON data here, and now we need to verify the data of every field. So now we can say pm.expect JSON data.id to equal 1. That should be 1. And the JSON data name should be equal to John. JSON data location should equal to India. JSON data phone to equal to something. And similarly, courses. Now we can see there are 2 courses are there. So in the courses, we have to access the first element, Java. And I can say courses of 0, courses of 1. 2 different elements. We have to put 2 different validations. Okay. And when you put multiple validations in this, even one is got failed. Okay, even one validation is got failed, the entire function will fail. The entire status will fail. That status will show as a fail. Okay, so remember that point. If you have multiple points in the same function, while executing this function, if something is got failed, even one is got failed, the whole function will show as a failure case. Okay, so let us see how we can validate the data in the response. So that is the next thing. Just a moment. Okay. So now let me just go to Postman and then I'm adding this pointer. So value of fields, okay, all the fields. So values of fields in response. All right, so now save it and then execute. So now it is got passed. All values are perfectly come. So let's say the ID I'm giving different value. Let's say 5. ID equal to 5. So execute and then obviously it will fail. So even if one statement is got failed, rest of them also it will show you. The entire function is one validation. Will be considered as one validation. So it will definitely fail. So I can say here 1. Yes. Okay, so it is got passed. So if you have a multiple records, again, you have to write a proper JSON path. And yesterday I've told you, right, how to generate the JSON path. So accordingly, you have to write a proper JSON path, whichever field you want to validate in that JSON, you can get the JSON path of that field. Even if you have a multiple fields or multiple records in the, even if you have a very complex JSON, you don't need any problem there. So you can just get the JSON path of that element and specify that JSON path here, because JSON data is a variable which is already captured the entire response. And from the JSON data dot, here you have to specify the JSON path. Then it will point to the exact element and then we can check the data of that particular field or element. And here JSON path is very, very important. So sometimes it will be difficult to write the JSON path manually. So we will take the help of the tools and we can generate a JSON path and whatever field we require. So accordingly, we can specify the value of the variable. So now save it and send this. Now again, it is got passed. So this is how we can verify the data of that particular field. So 2 validations we have done so far. So 3 validations. One is what we have verified the type of data type of data we verified. Second thing is what, if we have an array in the JSON response, we verified the contents of an array. And the third thing is what, verified the values of the fields. Means basically we are verifying the data is correct or not. This is called data validation, field level data validation. And then the next one is what, we have to finally verify the schema validation, which is basically called as a JSON schema validation. That is the last one, validating JSON schema. So what is JSON schema? That we need to understand first. JSON schema. So what is JSON schema? So schema is nothing but what? The structure. Okay, for example, if you want to understand very clearly, let me just explain with the table. Okay, let me explain with the table. So what is the schema means? In the database concept also, we will use this term very frequently, the schema, table schema like that. Similarly, here we have a JSON schema. So let me just explain something here. Let's say I have a table like this. First, let us try to understand with the table. Okay, in the table, we have some fields. Let's say employee ID, employee name, and the salary is there. So this is my table, and here we have some records, first record, second record, and so on. So different type of data we have. So what is a schema means? This is a table which contains the data also. But what about the schemas? What is a schema means? Schema says what kind of data we are storing into the table. So schema means nothing but this is a one. So for example, how many columns we have? EID and ENAME and salary. And EID is what? Integer column. ENAME is what? String column. Salary is what? Again, integer column or number column. So this is called as a schema. We can simply say this is a schema. Or we can also call as a metadata. Means the data about the data. Means what kind of data we are storing in the table. Who is deciding that? Schema is deciding that. Suppose if the ENAME is a string or EID is an integer. If EID is defined as an integer, can we store string here in the EID field? Can we store string here? No. So what is the data type we specified in the schema? Accordingly, we have to specify the data in the table, right? We have to follow the schema. And if the schema is a different, we cannot put different type of data. Whatever the data type is specified in the schema, and the same data type we can store in the table. This is a concept of schema. Similarly, JSON is also having as kind of a schema concept. So what is the JSON schema means? For example, here we have this particular response. Okay, this is our response. So this is our response. So for this particular response, what could be the schema? The schema means in schema what it is having. So let's say ID is there. So ID should be number, and the name should be John. That is a string. Location should be string. Phone number should be string. Courses should be array. Right? That is the schema actually. So if you just look at the JSON schema of this particular response, this is your JSON schema. You can just look at this. Okay, so the entire JSON response is an object. So it is an object. And what are the properties are there in this? ID is one property, name is one property, location is one property, phone is one property, courses is another property. So every property, there is a value associated with this. That value data type we will have here. See here, what is the type? ID is there. So ID is what? What is the type of ID? Integer. What is the type of name? String. What is the type of location? String. What is the type of phone? Which is also string. And what is the type of courses? Which is array. But inside the array, there are multiple values are there, like type string. The second one is also type string. Okay, and ID is mandatory field. So which is required field. Again, name, location, phone, courses, all of them are required fields. We cannot skip any one of the field. So this is the schema of particular response. So this is called JSON schema. According to the schema, we will able to store the data in the JSON, or else this JSON will not accept any other type of data. So it will internally follow the same schema. Just now I have told you table concept, right? So what are the data types which we have given to the table columns? Same data we can store in the table. Similarly, and whatever the type is defined in the JSON schema, the same type of data we can store in the JSON response or in the JSON data. But how we will get the JSON schema? Again, we have a different tools are available. So we can easily generate the JSON schema. So if I just go to the Google and search for it, I'll tell you how to generate the JSON schema. So I can just type generate JSON schema. Okay, just search for generate JSON schema. And you can find so many websites. You can just go with this JSON schema tool. You can use any website, no problem. Okay, so here we can just paste your JSON, which will automatically create your JSON schema. I think this is something different. Let me just take another one. Okay, free online JSON to JSON schema converter. So let us use this option. Okay, so now here you can just copy your JSON data that will automatically give you the JSON schema. So let me just go to the body and give this JSON data and search for it. Here, just paste your response, whatever you got. And for this response, we get the JSON schema. So just select this and click on generate schema. So once you click on this generate schema, so then it will automatically generated JSON schema. So this is a schema. According to this schema, the data we can store in the JSON file. Okay, so this is a connection between JSON file and JSON schema. So guys, have understood now what is schema means, which is very, very important. Schema. So what is schema means? Schema is describing the way or the type of data which we can store in the JSON file. And whatever the type we specified in the JSON schema, the same type of data we can store in the JSON file. Okay. So now why it is important? Why we are discussing about JSON schema? Because we have to validate whether our response is following our schema or not. So whatever the data we have in the response, which is there according to our JSON schema or not, that we need to verify. So that is a final verification. So the JSON schema verification we have to do. This is very, very important. So whatever the response we got, and not only one record, guys, even if you have more number of records, schema will not be changed. Schema will not be changed. Okay, same schema, even if you have a multiple records, it will not change. Okay, so how it is possible? Because same example again, if you take the table, okay, so let's say my table schema is what I have: employee ID, employee name, and employee salary. Employee ID is integer, which is number. Employee name is a string. Employee salary is again number or integer. This is my schema. So when you add multiple records in the table, will it change the data type or not? Even first record ID is integer only. First record name is string. First record salary is number. Same second record also follow the same thing. Third record is also follow the same thing. So the data, whatever we have, that will not change the schema. Okay, this will not impact anything on the schema. So even if you have one record or two records or 100 records, you can still verify schema of that particular response. Okay, so remember this point. So now we'll verify the schema of the response. So how we can verify the JSON schema? So to do this, we have something called, okay, so we have something called here. We already converted into JSON schema, right? So that we required. So this is an actual response. By using this response, we are able to generate your JSON schema, right? Now we need to validate whether this response is there according to the JSON schema or not. So for that, what you can do, we need to write this method. So pm.test, and this is the test name, description, and function. And here you can write arrow function also. I have written normal function. You can also write arrow function, no problem. And pm.expect tv4. What is this tv4? So tv is nothing but a teeny validator. So this is again one more library which is there in the Postman. Okay, Postman it is there. tv is nothing but a teeny validator version number 4. Teeny validator version number 4. This is one of the library, just like a PM. tv4 is one of the library in the Postman. So tv4.validate. And here we will pass two parameters. One is what? JSON data. So whatever data we have got in the response, right? That data we have to pass. This is a one. This is the response data. And the second one is what? And again, what is the JSON data? This variable we have to create. So you already created that variable earlier, right? So the same variable you have to refer this one. If you create this variable outside of the function, we can just refer this JSON data, or else you can create that variable again. Right, so that variable we have to specify, and schema. And whatever schema we captured, we have to create one more variable called schema. And the entire schema, JSON schema, we have to copy it in the test window. And according to this schema, we have to validate the JSON data. So two parameters we have to pass. Dot to be true means what? This JSON data should follow the schema. That should be true. We are expecting true here. So this particular method or function will validate JSON schema. Okay, now we'll see practically how we can do this. Go back to the Postman. And now the first and most important thing is what? JSON data variable we already created here. The same variable I'm going to use. So we can just look at this. Okay. Yeah. So here we created one time, and the same variable we can refer multiple places. So the same variable I referred here in this function, and also Here in this function also I have referred the same variable JSON data. And now here we don't need actually, okay, because we already created as a global variable. Here you don't need same JSON data. We are using it here. And now also we do the same thing. But before that, we have to capture the JSON schema, right? So here JSON schema validation, JSON schema validation. Okay, the first and most important thing is we have to capture the JSON schema. So how we will capture? By using any tool. So just copy this entire thing and keep that in a variable. So let me just go back to the Postman, and here I'm creating a variable. And in the JavaScript, you can create variable by using where keyword, where schema equal to, and here we need to paste the entire schema, whatever you have captured. So we need to put everything inside the Postman, where schema equal to. Done. So you can just look at this. So where schema is a variable, and the entire JSON schema I captured here. I put everything here. And now we need to start the validation. Okay, so we need to start the validation. What is the validation we have to start is pm.test. So that is a function which we need to specify. Okay, so pm.test schema is valid or not. We will test function. We can write normal function or arrow function. If you are writing arrow function, how we can write? Remove this keyword function and just a arrow. This is becomes an arrow function. Or if you want to write a normal function, you can just write a function keyword. Anything is correct. So pm.expect tv4.validate, and JSON data is a variable which is already created above. Now this schema variable which just now I created, which contains all the JSON schema. Now come down, and here we are expecting true. So this is a schema validation. Now save it and then execute. Okay, so now all validations are got passed. All valid. Schema is also valid. Okay, so for example, what I'll do is I'll say as per schema. Okay, as per schema, I'm expecting, right? I'm expecting type ID is a string. Okay, let's say I'm expecting ID is a string. ID should be in the string format as per my expectation, as per the schema. Okay, but once you get the response, we got in the number format, right? So now let us save and execute. Definitely it should fail now. See this, the last one, schema is got failed. So why? Because the response is not as per the schema which is defined. So the response should be same format according to the schema definition. So it should not be different. So then it will pass. So this is how we need to validate the schema. So again, let me change it back. And in JSON, we have a number and integer. Both the data types are there. So we can use alternatively integer or number. So when I execute this, now this will validate the schema also. So schema validation is one of the important thing which we need to validate as part of the response. Okay, so this is the last one. So JSON schema validation. So whatever type of response you got, okay, how much response you got, how much complex JSON it is, it doesn't matter. So the same validation points you need to apply. And moreover, you should be more familiar with the JSON path. So if you know the JSON path properly, you can exactly verify the fields properly. Okay, so these are all different things which we need to validate as part of the response. Okay, so for every type of request, we have to add these validation points. So now what I will do is I will add all these validation points for the rest of the request. So currently I have added all these validations for single request, get single student. So let me add all of them for other request also. So I already added, let me show you. So let's go to the next one, get all students data. So now go to the test tab, and here I have added the same thing almost, status code, status type, status code, header type, cookies, response, and so on. And same thing for create a new student also. For creating student also, new student also, I have added test here, 201 I'm expecting here. And then update student, and then delete student. So the validation points which we need to add for every HTTP request. And especially for get request, you will have more number of validations, because in the get request, we will get the response body also. So we need to verify the response body and along with the data, schema, and everything. So when you send a GET request, we have to add more number of validation points, but rest of the request, mainly we will test the status code, and then we will test the headers, cookies, time, and so on. So they are enough for rest of the things. But especially when you send GET request, we will also do the data validation and response data validation. And we need to add more number of assertions. Okay. So now I have added all the validations for every request. Then what I will do is I just want to run this entire collection in one shot. Instead of running each individual HTTP request, I just want to run the entire collection. So how we can run it? Yesterday I have shown you. So click on these three dots. Okay, so click on the three dots, and here you can see something called run collection. So click on the run collection. Now it will show you all the collections, and whichever collection you want to run, you can select or unselect. Okay, depends on your choice. All the collection HTTP request will be shown in this collection, and then iteration only one round you want to execute, and delay time you can make it as 0, or if you want to put some delay time between these collections at the time of execution, you can increase this, or else leave it and then click on run students API. So all requests will be executed one after another, and almost all validation points are got passed. Okay, so everything is got passed. So this is how we need to add validations to the request, and then we will able to execute. Okay, I will share this document, guys. Just keep it with you. And the same process will be done for any kind of APIs, all kinds of APIs, the same kind of validations we do. Status code, headers, cookies, response time, and response body. And especially GET request, we will focus more on response body. And we need to do schema validation, data validation. These are the two important things we need to validate. Okay, so this is all about validations, response validations. Now in the tomorrow session, we will discuss a few more topics. Now I'll stop for today here. Okay.